Hi, I'm Gina with Ayur Yoga Spa. We're back in the kitchen. You know, when I'm doing the private sessions on, or even the workshops on diet, nutrition, and lifestyle, whether it's for Ayurveda or just somebody looking to improve their health and understanding there is a connection between your food choices, your daily meals, and your health, they often struggle again with time management and coming up with easy recipes that are healthful, easy recipes that are helpful for, say, weight management as well. So today I'm going to show you a couple of one-pot meals. Now we use these seasonally for cleansing and rejuvenation. They're also very good if you're just having a rough week stress-wise, or even if you're not feeling well. They're very healing, they're very easy for the body to digest. Simple one-pot meals, and sometimes when we do a periodic cleansing of a day or so, we call that a mono diet because they're very simple foods. And I'm using, for this first meal we're making, is a pressure cooker. I've had this baby for probably 20 years and I use it quite a lot, almost every day. Sometimes I just cook my rice or my grains. I make all kinds of soups and stews. Today we're going to make a porridge-like stew/soup called Kitchari using red lentils and basmati rice. But if you've never used one before, they cut the cooking time in half. And the fact that we're using organic white basmati rice and red lentils, we'll probably, once the steam gets going, have this all cooked and done in 10 minutes. So the prep time, you know, my talking and the prep time and the cook time, maybe the whole thing 20 minutes. And then you have a nice, delicious and healthful porridge to have for lunch or dinner. So these are called Eternum pressure cookers. They're from Italy. A little rough on the spelling for me, so I'm going to say A-E-T-E-R-N-U-M, guessing, Eternum. I'm sure if you Google it, you'll find it. And some people are not familiar with pressure cookers, but this one has kind of a funny lid. They latch on, and when the steam builds, you'll hear it. This little button will pop up, and then it'll cook, cut the time in half because of the pressure in there. So we're going to begin with my crazy measuring, non-measuring. Hi, Patty and Lisa, who find that comical. The recipe will be on the blog, a written recipe, but just kind of play along with me. I always go with how I feel with cooking, and I kind of learned that from my Italian grandmother. So I'm probably going to double this recipe. Typically, the way I make, everybody has their own spin on Kitchari. The way I make it is I cut the rice down to about 1/4 cup, and the protein, the legume, the red lentil. Traditionally, mung beans are used, soaked mung beans, but today we're using red lentil. They're real delicious and creamy. This will be about 1/2 cup. But I'm going to double the recipe. So I'm going to start, because I'm doubling, I'm going to use about a heaping tablespoon. Excuse the fingers. And then we want to make that kind of Rasayana type method with the spices. So I'm going to sprinkle my different Vata, Pitta, Kapha spices. These are available online, and this helps to balance the doshas. I'm sprinkling this into the ghee. And when I sprinkle it into the ghee and it starts to cook into the ghee, it will bubble. Remember, we don't want to burn it. We just want it to bubble, and that makes it more assimilable and more like a little bit of a healing food. Okay, so I have probably at least a tablespoon of that as well. We do use salt and pepper. The Rasayana, the spice, this is a spice, and we also have Rasayanas in this same jar, but this is just the spice alone called a masala. And there's quite a variety of sea salts nowadays. One of my favorites is Himalayan sea salt, and I'm just going to put a pinch in of that. It's interesting to note in Ayurveda, the use of salt is very balancing for Vata body types. Vata and Pitta, sweet is a good taste for them, and so carbs and certain proteins and seeds and nuts and ghee provide that sweet. And salty is good for Vata. It brings moisture to the tissue, and another really interesting thing is it actually calms and quells anxiety. So if you notice you have an excessive salt craving, it might be a little bit of that going on. A lot of times our cravings are our body just trying to signal us what is out of balance. So you don't want to overindulge, obviously, in the salt, but it's an indicator that you're needing small amounts of it in your diet. So that's good for Vata. So I'm going to turn this heat off for a moment. Let the ghee sit. You don't have to do that when you're at home, but I do that because I'm talking. I don't want to lose track of the ghee and the bubbling, and I don't want it to burn. Typically, Kitchari, when it's used for cleansing and rejuvenation, is not made with onions or garlic. They're considered what's called rajasic, or very stimulating, very cleansing and stimulating to the mind and the body. But because we're not doing a specific cleanse today, we could say a mild cleanse because of just the quality of this being a soup, we're going to put a little bit of diced onion in there. I don't use a lot, just a little bit to give it that extra sweet flavor. Turning the heat back on to let a little bit of that flavor saute into the herbal ghee. And now some celery. So celery has a little bit of that salty quality to it. This is also balancing for Vatas. And I'm letting that saute as well. Try to use organic vegetables whenever possible. These are organic. The organic celery and organic greens are often very sandy, so I will rinse them first. But the organic carrots, they're usually washed already. I like to use the baby carrots. They're a little sweeter. Of course, if you have your own garden, that's a big advantage. And you don't really have to cut these. That's the nice part about this. And so again, I just kind of eyeball what I'm feeling like. And I'll throw in, anywhere from 3 to 6 carrots or more, depending on how long you decide to let this steam. The carrots sometimes will soften and break up into smaller pieces. Okay. The order in which you put the vegetables or the grain or the lentils is entirely up to you. You don't have to pre-soak the grain, you don't have to pre-soak the red lentil, but when you make it with mung beans, you would want to do that because this helps make the mung beans more digestible, but red lentils cook up really softly. So remember, we're going to double the recipe. So how exciting is this? I'm using a measuring cup. So we have a half a cup. That's the doubled recipe. Half a cup of organic white basmati rice. I love all rices, even brown. I'm often asked why we use organic white. You could use brown organic basmati or some other organic brown rice. Brown rices are warming to the body post-digestively. They have a more sustainable quality. They're heavier. They're warming. Very good if you have hypoglycemia. They're a whole grain, and so very, very healthy for you. The traditional recipe often here for cleansing uses the white rice because it has a cooling quality, and is very light and very easy to digest. Sometimes what I do before I add, and I'm pouring 1 cup of the red lentil, remember it was a half a cup doubled. Sometimes before I add the red lentil, even sometimes before I add the vegetables, I'll saute the rice into the herbal ghee because it gives a little roasted flavor. So that's something that's fun. So I'm roasting it now with the vegetables. So we've got the herbalized ghee, and that's the ghee with the spices. We call that herbalized ghee. And we've got the vegetables. And it's on low. You could go again maybe a little bit to in between medium high, low to medium high. But again, you want to be careful not to burn anything. You're just kind of toasting some of the rice. When you're wanting something to balance vata, again we use the salt. When we want it to balance kapha, we use a little bit more ginger and black pepper. We could use that for vata too, because vata tends to be cold sometimes. And when we're working with pitta, we use fresh ginger. Okay, there's my little ginger grinder. So I'm putting some fresh ginger in. You can hear the bubbling and the roasting of the rice. And then a little sprinkle of some black pepper. And now everybody's covered, so everybody will be balanced in their minds and their bodies. Warm, satisfied, nourished. And there goes the lentil. And so typically the half recipe was 3.5 cups, but because we doubled it, we're going to, yes, again, measure out 7 cups. Well, what would happen if I put in more than 7 cups? Nothing. It's fine if you put in more water. It's going to make it a little bit more soupy. And of course, less water will make it a little denser and drier. We want it soupy, definitely a little soupier for the cleansing and rejuvenation aspect of it. If we're feeling like we want to feel more satisfied, a little more nourished, then we can make it a denser mix. In fact, we could even have added more rice to do that. Okay, so now I'm turning it on high. We've got going on 6 cups. And 1 more. Water is always a big topic too. What water should I drink? Is tap water okay? And so everything in moderation. We have a filter on our tap. I prefer RO water, reverse osmosis. I do also have around bottled water and drinking water, and I just like to change it up all the time. Change up the brands, using the filtered water, using the different brands from the store. I like Crystal, Geyser, and Smart Water, all the different brands. I prefer not to get them in the opaque containers, the kind of the milky colored plastic, and prefer the clearer plastic. Apparently less of the chemicals of the plastic leach into the water, but you don't really know any of that for sure unless you have the water tested. So by varying up all the different places that you drink your water, then you're working on keeping that clean and pure in your body. So we stir that up, find our funny little lid, and that's it. I know, that seemed like it maybe took a little longer because I was talking and taking my time, but once you know the method and you have the recipe, and again, you can explore and vary up the recipe. So now it'll just take a few minutes to get the steam going. So it's been steaming now for 10 minutes on low, and it's time to turn it off. And so I could just leave it here and walk away. It's actually still cooking. If you know you gave it a good 10 minutes, then you're going to take it off the heat. And you could walk away and just let it do its thing. Eventually the steam will run out and the little red button will fall. Second way is to lift the steam and let it out. But there's a nice little trick I learned. So if you'll follow me over to the sink. It's a little tricky with the filter that I have on the sink, but by running cold water around where the steam comes out, and you need to be careful, keep your hands and your face away, and along the seam of the lid, and so now it's taking half the time or less for the steam to empty, whereas if I see it's already down, if I had stayed by the stove, we would have been standing there for, several minutes. And there she is, and she's done. And look how pretty that is. So we've got our soup, porridge, and the longer, especially if it's brown rice, the longer that it sits, of course, the water starts to be absorbed by the grain. It'll get thicker as the day goes on. So before I serve, not just as a garnish, but also to contribute to the health benefits and the healing aspect, I will add fresh herbs and sometimes some baby spinach leaves. Sometimes I'll have sauteed some asparagus or some yellow squash or zucchini. So there's a lot of ways to make it more interesting, have variety with it, and more nutritious. Some organic frozen peas is another way that I do that. So I'm stirring that right in, and I have the heat off because there's plenty of heat going on in there. Why not add some peas? Why not? So these are some organic frozen peas, and so I just add them right in because it's very, very hot, and the heat of the container will cook these peas. I don't need to turn the heat back on. So now I've added some peas. Look how pretty. We've got all different colors going. Some fresh herbs. My favorite, fresh cilantro and fresh basil. I know some people are a little bit sensitive to the taste of cilantro. It has a very distinct flavor. So maybe just some fresh basil. The more, the merrier on fresh herbs. So there I've got that whole packet that I'm going to throw in. And that'll make a really nice flavor. Earlier I sauteed the herbs, the masala spices that were mind-body appropriate for Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Another thing that I do to customize someone's treatment is I formulate herbs for them for digestion, elimination, for nervine tonics, for mind tonics, for a sedative or a tonic to restore the nervous system back to health. So I'm always, whenever I meet for the full-on consult, the Ayurvedic assessment and clinical exam, I'm going to design 2 formulas to get things going for you. A digestive formula and a nervine formula. So in other words, a body formula and a mind formula. And this is a body formula that I designed, and it's simply Got a small amount each of coriander, cumin, fennel, and ginger. These are balancing for Vata and Pitta. Those are my dominant doshas, both in my true nature and the ones that tend to sometimes go out of balance. And I'm just adding a little bit at the end. I could have sauteed these right into the ghee, just like I did earlier, but now I'm adding a little bit more. And these herbs are, I have both the Vata balancing, the warming herbs, the moisturizing herbs, and I also have the cooling and calming herbs in there as well. And there you have it. That's the whole thing. And now we've got some delicious Kitchari for the gang. I wish you could come join us, and maybe someday you will at one of the workshops or retreats. So visit my blog, Ayur Yoga Spa. Thanks.